In a world where net worth determines human worth, a single pint of blood became the most expensive transaction in history. Simone Caldwell thought she was just doing her civic duty when she rolled up her sleeve for a dying John Doe in a stormy ER. She didn't know the man bleeding out on the table was Gabriel Mercer, the ruthless heir to a global shipping empire. She saved his life for free, but he was about to return the favor with a proposal that would cost her everything she ever knew. When a billionaire owes you his life, the debt isn't paid in cash, it's paid in chaos. The neon sign of the Midnight Diner flickered with an irritating buzz, casting a sickly pink glow over the wet pavement of 4th Avenue. Inside, Simone Caldwell wiped down the laminate counter for the 100th time that night. Her wrist ached. The scent of stale coffee and grease clung to her uniform, a smell that no amount of cheap detergent could wash out. It was 2 a.m. in Seattle, and the rain was coming down in sheets, turning the city into a blurred watercolor painting. "Simone! Table 4 needs a refill. Stop daydreaming," Mr. Henderson barked from the kitchen window. He was a man whose sweat always smelled like onions, and he treated his staff with the same respect he gave the cockroaches in the pantry. "Coming, Mr. Henderson," Simone said, her voice steady, despite the exhaustion dragging at her eyelids. She grabbed the pot. She was 24, but tonight she felt 40. The rent for her studio apartment in the crumbling block of East Olive Way was 3 days late. Her landlord, a man named Mr. Kowalski, had threatened to change the locks if she didn't have the cash by Friday. That was tomorrow. As she poured coffee for a trucker who didn't bother to look up from his phone, a screech of tires tore through the ambient noise of the diner. It was a sound that made your teeth ache, rubber shredding against wet asphalt. Crash! The sound was apocalyptic, metal crunching into metal, glass shattering like a bomb going off. The diner shook. The lights flickered and died, plunging them into darkness before the emergency lights kicked in. Simone didn't think. She dropped the coffee pot. It shattered, scalding her ankles, and ran out the front door into the deluge. In the middle of the intersection, a sleek, black luxury sedan, something foreign and expensive, had been T-boned by a delivery truck that had run the red light. The truck driver was stumbling out, dazed, but the sedan was a crumpled accordion of steel wrapped around a lamp post. "Call 911!" Simone screamed back at the diner patrons who were gawking through the window. She sprinted toward the sedan. The rain soaked her instantly, plastering her uniform to her skin. She reached the driver's side. The door was jammed, the metal twisted. Through the shattered window she saw him. He was unconscious. Blood, so much blood, was streaming from a gash on his forehead, masking his features. He was wearing a tuxedo, the bow tie undone. He looked young, perhaps in his early 30s, with sharp cheekbones that were currently pale as death. "Hey, can you hear me?" Simone shouted, reaching in to check for a pulse. His skin was ice cold. The pulse was there, but it was thready, fluttering like a trapped bird. Sirens wailed in the distance, getting louder. The paramedics arrived in a flurry of motion. Simone stepped back, hugging herself against the cold, watching as they used the jaws of life to pry the man free. "He's crashing!" one paramedic yelled. "BP is 60/40. We're losing him. Get him to Harborview. Trauma 1. As they loaded him onto the stretcher, a paramedic looked at Simone. "Did you see what happened?" "The truck. It slid," Simone stammered. "Is he going to make it?" "He's lost a lot of blood. Massive internal hemorrhaging. It's going to be close." Simone didn't know why, but she couldn't just walk back into the diner. She felt a strange tether to the dying stranger. Maybe it was the way his hand had twitched when she touched his neck. Maybe it was just that she was tired of seeing things break and doing nothing about it. "I'm coming," she said. "Family only. the driver said sternly. I'm his fiancé. The lie tumbled out of her mouth before she could stop it. It was the only way they'd let her in the ambulance. The paramedic hesitated, then waved her in. Get in. Fast. The ride to Harborview Medical Center was a blur of shouting, beeping monitors, and the metallic smell of copper. The man on the stretcher convulsed once. Simone instinctively grabbed his hand. It was a large, calloused hand, surprising for someone in a tuxedo. Stay with me, she whispered, squeezing his fingers. At the hospital, chaos reigned. They wheeled him into the trauma bay. A doctor, Dr. Orris, a frantic man with graying hair, began shouting orders. Type and cross. We need 4 units of O-negative stat. His blood type is O-neg. He's carrying a medical alert card. The nurse ran to the cooler and came back, pale. Doctor, we're out. The pile-up on I-5 drained the supply. The chopper with the new shipment is grounded due to the storm. Dr. Orris slammed his fist on the counter. He has 10 minutes without blood. Maybe less. Simone was standing in the doorway, unnoticed. She heard the words. O-negative. The universal donor. The rarest type to have. The most valuable to give. She stepped forward, her voice cutting through the noise. I'm O-negative. The room stopped. Dr. Harris looked at her, seeing the waitress uniform, the soaked hair. Are you sure? I donate every 8 weeks. I'm a match. We don't have time for a full screen, the nurse argued. It's against protocol. He's going to die in 5 minutes, Dr. Orris roared. He looked at Simone. You realize we have to do a direct transfusion? It's risky. We need to hook you up right now. Do it, Simone said, rolling up her wet sleeve. They didn't wait. They wheeled a gurney next to the dying man. A nurse slapped a vein in Simone's arm, inserting a large bore needle. A tube of dark red life began to flow from her arm, through a warmer and into the veins of the Billionaire. Simone watched her blood travel through the clear plastic tubing. She felt lightheaded almost instantly. She watched the man's face. Beneath the blood and bruising, he was devastatingly handsome, with a strong jaw and dark lashes. Who are you? She wondered as the room began to spin. BP is stabilizing, someone shouted. Rising to 80/50. We have a rhythm. Simona's vision tunneled. The last thing she heard was the steady beep, beep, beep of the monitor, confirming that the stranger's heart was beating with her blood. Then, everything went black. Simone woke up with a headache that felt like a drill boring into her temples. She was in a hospital bed, but not a private room. She was in the hallway, behind a flimsy curtain. A nurse, not the one from the trauma bay, was checking her chart. You're awake, the nurse said briskly. You gave us a scare. You fainted after the donation. We gave you some juice and a cookie. Simone sat up, grabbing her head. The man. The one I gave blood to. Is he okay? The nurse frowned. The John Doe. They moved him to the VIP wing about an hour ago. Private security showed up. Turns out he's someone important. That's all I know. VIP wing. Private security. Simone looked down at her stained uniform. Can I see him? Honey, you can't even get on that floor without a badge. Besides, you're discharged. We need the bed. Simone stumbled out of the hospital an hour later into the grey dawn. The rain had stopped, leaving the city smelling of wet concrete and exhaust. She checked her phone. 5 missed calls from Mr. Henderson. You're fired. Don't bother coming for your last check. I'll mail it, minus the broken pot. Simone sat on the bus bench and put her head in her hands. She had saved a life, and in return, she had lost her livelihood. 3 days later, Gabriel Mercer opened his eyes. The room smelled of antiseptic and expensive lilies. He tried to move, but his body felt like it had been run through a meat grinder. His ribs were taped, his leg was in a cast, and his head throbbed. "Mr. Mercer." Gabriel turned his head. Standing there was Preston, his head of security, a man who looked like a vending machine in a suit. "Preston," Gabriel croaked. His throat was sandpaper. "What happened?" "Accident. Truck ran a red. You've been out for 72 hours. Gabriel closed his eyes, flashes of memory returning. The squeal of tires, the impact, the cold rain, and then a voice. "Stay with me." A woman's voice. Soft, terrified but commanding, and a warmth. He remembered a distinct sensation of warmth entering his freezing body. "Who saved me?" Gabriel asked. Preston checked his tablet. "Paramedics arrived within 6 minutes. Dr. Orris performed the surgery." "No," Gabriel said, struggling to sit up. "Before the surgery. Someone was there, in the street, and the blood. I remember hearing them say there was no blood." Preston looked uncomfortable. There was a complication with the supply. A civilian stepped in. A direct transfusion. It's highly irregular, legally questionable, but it saved your life, sir. "Who was she?" "We don't know," Preston said. "The hospital records just list her as emergency donor. She left before we secured the floor. The staff said she was wearing a Waitress uniform. Maybe the Rusty Spoon or Midnight Diner logo. It was blurry." Gabriel looked at the IV in his arm. He felt a strange surge of energy, a thrumming in his veins that wasn't there before. He was a man who believed in transactions. He owed a debt, and Gabriel Mercer never left a debt unpaid. "Find her," Gabriel commanded. His voice was weak, but it carried the weight of a man who owned half the shipping lanes in the Pacific. "Sir, we have business to attend to. The merger with Kaneko Corp is in 2 weeks. Your Aunt Victoria is already moving to have you declared incapacitated to take over the board." Gabriel's eyes hardened. Victoria, his father's sister. She had been waiting for him to die since he was born. "I said, find her, Preston. Check every diner within a 5-mile radius of the crash site. Check the security cameras. I want the woman who bleeds like me." It had been 2 weeks since the accident. Simone Caldwell was currently sitting on the floor of her apartment, counting quarters. She had $7.40. The eviction notice was taped to her door like a scarlet letter. She had 3 days to vacate. She had applied to 5 different restaurants, but the service industry was in a slump, and Mr. Henderson had bad-mouthed her to anyone who called for a reference. She was desperate. "Maybe I can sell my hair," she muttered to the empty room. A knock on the door made her jump. It was a heavy, authoritative knock, not Mr. Kowalski's frantic pounding. Simone stood up, smoothing her worn jeans. She opened the door. Standing in the hallway was a man who looked like he had stepped out of a magazine, though he looked tired. He was leaning on a cane. He wore a charcoal grey suit that cost more than her entire building. Behind him stood a giant of a man with an earpiece. Simona's breath hitched. It was him. The man from the car. He looked different now. Clean. Sharp. His eyes were a piercing, icy blue that seemed to scan her soul. He still looked pale, but the strength radiating off him was undeniable. "Simone Caldwell?" he asked. His voice was deep, smooth, like whiskey poured over gravel. "Yes?" Simone gripped the doorframe. Are you okay?" Gabriel Mercer studied her. She was thinner than he expected, dark circles under her eyes. She was wearing a faded, oversized sweater, but there was a fire in her eyes, the same fire he had heard in her voice that night. "I am alive," Gabriel said. "Because of you. I just did what anyone would do." Gabriel stepped into the small apartment without asking. He looked around. He saw the peeling wallpaper, the single mattress on the floor, the jar of quarters. He saw the eviction notice on the table. He turned back to her. "You saved the life of Gabriel Mercer. Do you know who I am?" Simone shook her head. "I don't watch the news much. I work, or I used to." "You lost your job because of that night," Gabriel stated. It wasn't a question. "Mr. Henderson didn't appreciate me leaving during the rush," she admitted, looking down. Gabriel nodded to Preston. The large man placed a briefcase on the wobbly kitchen table. "In that case," Gabriel said, leaning on his cane, "I have a proposal for you. A job offer." Simone looked at the briefcase, then at him. "I'm a waitress. I don't think I'm qualified for whatever shipping company you run." Gabriel walked closer to her. The air between them crackled. He could sense her desperation, but also her pride. She hadn't asked him for a dime. "I don't need a shipping clerk, Miss Caldwell. I need a wife." Simone laughed, a nervous, incredulous sound. "Excuse me?" "My aunt is trying to seize control of my company. She claims my lifestyle and this recent accident prove I am unstable and reckless. To secure the vote of the board of directors next week, I need to present an image of stability, a family man. I need a fiancé and eventually a wife." "You're insane," Simone said, backing away. "Hire an actress." "Actors can be bought. They leak stories to the press for fame," Gabriel said coldly. "I need someone who understands the value of loyalty, someone who gave her own blood to a stranger without asking for a name. You share my blood now, Simone. That makes you trustworthy." He opened the briefcase. It was filled with neat stacks of $100 bills. $50,000 now to pay your debts. $1 million upon the completion of 1 year of marriage. And I will destroy Mr. Henderson's business for firing you. Simone stared at the money. It was freedom. It was safety. It was insane. "And what do I have to do?" she whispered. "Wear the ring, smile at the parties, live in my house, and convince the world that you love me." Gabriel stepped closer, his blue eyes locking onto hers. "Can you do that, Simone? Can you pretend to love a monster to save yourself?" Simone looked at the eviction notice, then at the man whose life ran through her veins. "I don't have to pretend to save people," she said softly. "I'll do it." Gabriel signaled to Preston. "Good. Pack your things. You're moving to Mercer Heights tonight." As Simone packed her meager belongings, she didn't realize that entering Gabriel's world would be far more dangerous than the car crash. She wasn't just walking into a mansion, she was walking into a shark tank, and Victoria Mercer was already smelling blood in the water. Mercer Heights was not a home. It was a fortress masquerading as a mansion. The iron gates groaned open to reveal a winding driveway lined with ancient oaks that seemed to whisper warnings in the wind. The house itself was a sprawling estate of grey stone and dark glass, perched on a cliff overlooking the churning Pacific Ocean. Simone stepped out of the black SUV, clutching her small, battered duffel bag. It looked pitiful against the backdrop of marble columns. "Leave the bag," Gabriel said, leaning heavily on his cane as he exited the vehicle. "Burn it. You won't be wearing those clothes anymore." Simone tightened her grip on the strap. "This is all I have." "Not anymore," Gabriel replied, his voice devoid of sentiment. "You represent the Mercer name now, and the Mercer name does not wear polyester." He led her inside. The foyer was cavernous, dominated by a crystal chandelier that looked like a frozen explosion. A line of staff stood at attention, maids in crisp black and white, a butler who looked like he had been starched along with his collar. "This is Miss Caldwell," Gabriel announced to the room. "She will be residing in the East Wing. Treat her as you would treat me." The staff bowed, but Simone caught the flickering glances. Curiosity, judgment, and a hint of pity. They knew she didn't belong here. She was a sparrow in a nest of hawks. Gabriel led her to a study that smelled of old leather and expensive scotch. He sat behind a massive mahogany desk, wincing slightly as he adjusted his injured leg. The moment the doors closed, the air in the room grew heavy. "The rules are simple," Gabriel said, sliding a thick document across the desk. "We share a public face, not a private life. You will attend all functions by my side. You will memorize my family history, my business holdings, and my allergies. In private, you stay out of my way." Simone picked up the contract. "And the sleeping arrangements?" "Separate bedrooms, connected by a door that will remain locked," Gabriel said, his eyes scanning a file on his laptop. "I am buying your time and your image, Simone, not your body." Simone felt a flush of heat. Was it embarrassment or relief? "And what about your aunt, Victoria?" Gabriel stopped typing. He looked up, his expression darkening. "Victoria is the reason you are here. She believes I am weak. She believes I am reckless. She will try to break you to get to me. She will smile while she hands you poison. Do not drink it." As if summoned by his words, the heavy oak doors creaked open without a knock. A woman glided in. She was in her late 50s, but her skin was pulled tight, preserving a beauty that was cold and brittle. She wore a tailored cream suit that cost more than Simone's life earnings. Her hair was a silver helmet of perfection. "Gabriel," she purred, her eyes instantly locking onto Simone like a laser sight. "Preston told me you brought home a guest." "Aunt Victoria," Gabriel said, his voice dropping a bass an octave. "Meet Simone Caldwell, my fiancée." Victoria stopped her, the silence stretched, tight as a piano wire. She walked slowly towards Simone, the clicking of her heels echoing on the hardwood. She circled Simone, inspecting her like a prize horse at an auction. She looked at Simone's frayed sneakers, her chapped hands, the cheap haircut. "Fiancé?" Victoria let out a short, sharp laugh. "Oh, Gabriel, you've truly lost your mind. The concussion must be worse than Dr. Aris said. Where did you find her? The charity ward?" "Simone is the woman who saved my life," Gabriel said, standing up. The pain in his leg made him sway, but he held his ground. "She gave me her blood when the hospital ran dry. We are connected, Victoria. By fate." Victoria's eyes narrowed. She stepped into Simone's personal space. Simone could smell her perfume, something floral and cloying, like funeral flowers. "Blood is cheap, darling," Victoria whispered to Simone, her voice low enough that only they could hear. "Breeding is priceless. You may have given him a pint, but you will never be a Mercer. I will chew you up and spit you out before the wedding cake is cut." Simone's heart hammered against her ribs. She wanted to run. She wanted to apologize and leave. But then she remembered the eviction notice. She remembered Mr. Henderson laughing as he fired her. She remembered the feeling of helplessness. She looked Victoria in the eye. "I'm O-negative, Mrs. Mercer," Simone said, her voice trembling but clear. "I'm a universal donor. I can give to anyone. But you? You look like you only know how to take." Gabriel's eyebrows shot up. A flicker of something, amusement, crossed his face. Victoria stiffened. Her smile vanished, replaced by a mask of pure ice. "We shall see," Victoria said, turning on her heel. "Dinner is at 8. Do try to find something to wear that doesn't smell like grease." She swept out of the room. Gabriel exhaled, sinking back into his chair. He looked at Simone with a new intensity. "You have a sharp tongue," he noted. "I worked the night shift at a diner in downtown Seattle," Simone said, crossing her arms. "Drunks and thieves don't scare me. Your aunt is just a bully in Prada." "Don't underestimate her," Gabriel warned. "But, good. You'll need that fire. Now go upstairs. The stylists are waiting. Tonight, we go to war." The transformation took 4 hours. A team of 3 stylists scrubbed, plucked, painted, and polished Simone until she barely recognized the woman in the mirror. Her mousy brown hair was dyed a rich, lustrous chestnut and styled in soft waves. Her skin glowed. Her nails were painted a deep blood red. But it was the dress that took her breath away. It was a floor-length gown of crimson silk, strapless and structured, with a slit that ran up her thigh. It was aggressive. It was the color of the blood she had given. When she descended the grand staircase at 7:55 p.m., Gabriel was waiting at the bottom. He wore a fresh tuxedo, the tailoring hiding the bandages on his ribs. He was looking at his watch, impatient. Then he looked up. He froze. For a second, the cold billionaire mask slipped. His pupils dilated. He watched her walk down the stairs, the red silk flowing like water around her legs. "Well?" Simone asked, reaching the bottom step. She felt exposed, vulnerable in the expensive fabric. Gabriel cleared his throat, adjusting his cufflinks. "Adequate. You look expensive. That is the point." "You know how to charm a girl, don't you?" Simone quipped dryly. "I'm not trying to charm you, Simone. I'm trying to weaponize you." He offered her his arm. "The board of directors is coming here for a private reception. This is the first test. If we fail tonight, the stock plunges, and Victoria takes the chair." "No pressure," Simone muttered, taking his arm. His bicep was hard as rock beneath the wool. They entered the grand ballroom. It was filled with 50 of the most powerful people in the Pacific Northwest. Men with grey hair and cigars, women dripping in diamonds. The murmur of conversation stopped the moment they entered. "Smile," Gabriel whispered through his teeth. "Look at me like I'm the sun and you're the earth." Simone looked up at him. She thought about the man in the car, the dying stranger she had refused to let go of. That part wasn't a lie. She softened her eyes. "I've got you," she whispered back. They worked the room. Gabriel was brilliant, charming the investors, introducing Simone as his savior and soulmate. Simone played her part, nodding, smiling, using the etiquette tips the stylist had drilled into her. But Victoria was watching from the corner, holding a glass of champagne like a weapon. Halfway through the night, a man approached them. He was tall, with a cruel smile and eyes that darted around the room. "Gabriel," the man said, his voice oily. "So good to see you upright. We heard the crash was devastating." "Lucas," Gabriel nodded, his jaw tightening. "This is Simone, my fiancée." "Simone, this is Lucas Vane, a competitor." "Charmed," Lucas said, taking Simone's hand and kissing it a little too long. "You know, you look familiar, my dear. Did you ever work at the Blue Velvet Club? Or perhaps— Wait, I know." He pulled out his phone. "Victoria showed me this interesting article from the local paper about a waitress at a diner who caused a scene during a pile-up. Sued by her landlord." The circle of investors nearby went quiet. Victoria stepped forward, feigning concern. "Oh, surely not," Victoria said loudly. "Gabriel wouldn't marry a destitute waitress who was evicted 3 days ago. That would suggest this is a financial arrangement." The room buzzed. The humiliation burned Simone's cheeks. They were stripping her bare, revealing her poverty as a sin. Gabriel's hand tightened on Simone's waist. He was about to speak, to defend the lie, but Simone stepped forward. She let go of Gabriel and faced Lucas and Victoria. She didn't deny it. "Yes," Simone said, her voice ringing out in the silent ballroom. "I was a waitress. I served coffee for 6 years to support my sick mother until she passed. And yes, I was evicted." She looked around the room, making eye contact with the billionaires. I was working a double shift the night of the storm. When I heard the crash, I didn't wait for security. I didn't check my stock portfolio. I ran into the rain. I held a dying man's hand while the paramedics cut him out of a hunk of metal. And when the hospital said they had no blood to save him. Simone lifted her chin, her eyes blazing. I gave him mine. I didn't know he was a billionaire. I didn't know he was Gabriel Mercer. I just knew he was a human being who didn't deserve to die alone in the dark. She turned to Victoria. You call it a lack of breeding, Mrs. Mercer. I call it humanity. Something that seems to be in short supply in this room. Silence. Absolute, stunned silence. Then an elderly man in the back, the chairman of the board, started to clap. A slow, rhythmic applause. Well said, young lady, the chairman rumbled. That is the kind of character we need in this family. Someone who acts. The tension broke. The investors nodded, murmuring approval. The narrative had shifted. Simone wasn't a gold digger. She was a heroine. A modern-day Cinderella with a backbone of steel. Victoria's face turned a shade of puce. She had overplayed her hand. Gabriel looked down at Simone. There was no act in his eyes now. There was genuine shock and something else. Respect. You did good, he murmured. Suddenly, Gabriel stumbled. His grip on her waist turned into a desperate clutch. His face went ashen, sweat breaking out on his forehead instantly. Gabriel! Simone grabbed him. Gabriel! He slumped against her, his weight dragging them both down. The crowd gasped. He's collapsing! Someone shouted. Preston rushed forward, but Simone was already on her knees, cradling Gabriel's head. His eyes were rolling back. It's not the injury, Simone said, her instincts screaming. She looked at the champagne glass Gabriel had dropped. It had shattered on the floor, but a small puddle remained. It was fizzing slightly, reacting with the floor wax in a way champagne shouldn't. She looked up, scanning the panicked crowd. She saw Victoria looking genuinely confused, but then her eyes locked on a waiter standing near the exit. A waiter who wasn't panicking. A waiter who was watching with a cold, satisfied smirk. Simone recognized him. It was the truck driver, the man who had hit Gabriel's car 2 weeks ago. He hadn't just run a red light. He had been sent to finish the job. Preston! Simone screamed, pointing at the exit. The waiter! Stop him! But Gabriel seized, his body arching in pain. My heart! Gabriel gasped, his hand gripping Simone's dress, staining the red silk darker with his sweat. Burning! Help! Simone yelled, pressing her hand over his heart, feeling the erratic, terrifying rhythm. He's been poisoned! As the ballroom descended into chaos, Simone realized the terrifying truth. The contract wasn't just about saving Gabriel's company. It was about keeping him alive long enough to find the killer living under his roof. And now, she was the only thing standing between him and the grave. The waiting room of the private clinic was silent, save for the aggressive ticking of a wall clock that seemed to be counting down the seconds of Gabriel Mercer's life. This wasn't Harborview. This was the Mercer family's private medical facility, a fortress of steel and glass hidden in the hills of Bellevue. Simone sat on a leather chair, her red silk dress ruined, stained with champagne and the sweat of a dying man. She was shivering, though the room was warm. Across from her, Victoria Mercer paced like a caged tiger. She had been on the phone for an hour, barking orders to lawyers and PR firms, spinning the narrative before the sun came up. Food poisoning, Victoria snapped into her phone. Tell the press it was a bad oyster. If anyone mentions poison or assassination, I will sue them into oblivion. And get the board on the line. Tell them Gabriel is resting. She hung up and whirled on Simone. Her eyes were venomous. This is your fault, Victoria hissed, pointing a manicured finger. "He was fine until you walked into his life. You bring chaos, girl. You are a curse." Simone stood up, her legs trembling, but her voice steady. "I saved him. Again. While you were worried about your stock options, I was keeping his heart beating." "You," Victoria scoffed. "You're a waitress. You're a prop. And now you're a suspect. Who's to say you didn't slip something into his drink? The grieving widow inherits the empire. Isn't that the waitress's dream?" Before Simone could respond, the double doors swung open. Preston, the head of security, walked in. His face was grim. "Mrs. Mercer, Miss Caldwell," Preston said, his voice gravelly. "The doctors have stabilized him. It was a neurotoxin. Digitalis, likely mixed with a paralytic. If Miss Caldwell hadn't recognized the symptoms and kept him awake in the car, his heart would have stopped before we reached the gate." Victoria paled, her hand going to her throat. "Digitalis? That's not an accident." "No," Preston said. "It's a hit. And Miss Caldwell was right. We reviewed the security footage from the ballroom. The waiter who served the champagne, he wasn't on the catering list." Preston pulled out a tablet and showed them a grainy freeze frame. It was the man Simone had spotted, the man with the cold smirk. "I know him," Simone whispered, staring at the face. "That's the driver, the one who hit Gabriel's car 2 weeks ago. I saw him stumble out of the truck." "Are you sure?" Preston asked intensely. "I never forget a face," Simone said. "He looked at me that night, and he looked at me tonight. He wanted me to see him." Preston swiped the screen. "His name is Leo Crane, ex-military, dishonorable discharge, a mercenary for hire. We thought the truck crash was an accident, a drunk driver losing control on wet pavement. But if he was at the party, it means the crash was a failed attempt. And tonight was Plan B." Victoria sank into a chair. "Someone is hunting my nephew." "Not just someone," Simone said, her mind racing back to the party. "Lucas Vane. He was talking to us right before Gabriel took the drink. He distracted us. He made a scene about my past so we wouldn't notice the waiter switching the glasses." Victoria looked up, her eyes wide. "Lucas. That snake has wanted the Mercer shipping lanes for a decade. But murder? Desperate men do desperate things," Preston said, holstering his tablet. "I'm putting the facility on lockdown. No one in or out. If Crane is a pro, he might try to finish the job here." "I want to see him," Simone said. "He's unconscious," Victoria snapped. "He's my fiancé," Simone shot back, the word feeling less like a lie and more like a shield. "And unlike you, I'm the only one here who has actually given him life." "Get out of my way, Victoria." For the first time, the older woman hesitated. She looked at Simone's blood-stained dress, her fierce eyes, and the sheer force of will radiating off her. Victoria stepped aside. Simone entered the dimly lit room. The rhythmic beep, beep, beep of the monitor was the only sound. Gabriel lay in the bed, looking smaller than she had ever seen him. Tubes ran from his arms. An oxygen mask covered his mouth. His skin was translucent. Simone pulled a chair to the bedside. She took his hand. It was cold. "You can't die," she whispered. "You promised me $1 million and a year of hell. You don't get to quit early." She sat there for hours as the sun began to rise, painting the sky outside in bruised purples and oranges. She watched his chest rise and fall. She thought about her life before this, the smell of the diner, the constant worry about rent. It seemed like a different lifetime. Around 6 a.m., Gabriel's fingers twitched. Simone jumped up. "Gabriel!" His eyelids fluttered. He groaned, a sound of deep pain. Slowly, his eyes opened. The icy blue was clouded, unfocused. He blinked, trying to clear the fog. "Simone?" His voice was a rasp, barely audible behind the mask. "I'm here," she said, squeezing his hand. "You're safe. You're at the clinic." He tried to pull the mask off. Simone helped him. He took a ragged breath. "The party," he croaked. "Over. You were poisoned. But you're going to live." Gabriel looked at her. He saw the exhaustion in her face, the stains on her dress. He saw that she hadn't left his side. "You," he coughed. "You saved me again." "Stop making a habit of it," she said, a small, tearful smile breaking through. "I'm running out of blood to give." Gabriel tried to sit up, wincing. "Who?" "We think it's Lucas Vane," Simone explained. "He hired the truck driver, a man named Leo Crane. Preston is hunting them down now." Gabriel's eyes hardened. The weakness vanished, replaced by a cold, terrifying rage. "Lucas, I'll ruin him. I'll burn his company to the ground." "Focus on breathing first, billionaire," Simone chided gently. "Why?" Gabriel asked suddenly, looking at her intently. "Why did you stay? You could have run. When the chaos started, you could have disappeared, taken the 50,000 and vanished." Simone looked down at their joined hands. "I don't run away from people who need help. Besides, we made a deal. I'm loyal to the end of the contract." "Is that all it is?" Gabriel asked. "A contract?" The air in the room shifted. It was heavy, charged with something unspoken. Simone looked into his eyes and felt a pull she couldn't explain. It wasn't just gratitude, it was recognition. Two lonely people who had built walls around themselves, suddenly finding a door. "Rest, Gabriel," she whispered, pulling her hand away. "We have a war to fight when you get up." By the afternoon, Gabriel was discharged against medical advice. He refused to stay in the clinic. He wanted to be at Mercer Heights. He wanted to be on his own turf. They returned to the mansion in an armored convoy. The mood was tense. The staff moved quietly, afraid to make a sound. Gabriel set up a command center in the library. Preston and his team were tracking Leo Crane's movements. "We found Crane's safe house," Preston announced, pointing to a map on the screen. "An abandoned warehouse by the docks. It's a trap, sir." "We know it." "Then we spring it," Gabriel said. He was sitting in his wheelchair, looking pale but ferocious. "I want him alive. He needs to testify that Lucas hired him." "Sir, you can't go," Preston argued. "You can barely walk." "I'm going," Gabriel said. "I need to look him in the eye." "I'm going too," Simone said from the doorway. Everyone turned. She had changed into black jeans and a thick jacket. She looked ready for a fight. "Absolutely not," Gabriel said. "This isn't a gala, Simone. These men are killers." "And I'm the only one who can identify him positively," Simone argued. "Plus, I'm the bait." "What?" Gabriel frowned. "Think about it." Simone walked into the room. "Lucas Vane knows he failed. He knows you're alive. He's desperate. If he thinks I'm alone, if he thinks I'm the weak link, he'll come for me. We can draw him out." "No." Gabriel slammed his hand on the desk. "I will not use you as a shield." "You're not using me," Simone said, walking up to his chair and placing her hands on the armrests, trapping him. "I'm volunteering. We end this tonight, Gabriel. I want my life back. I want our lives back." Gabriel looked at her. He saw the determination. He realized then that she was stronger than him. He had money, power, influence, but she had grit. She had the kind of courage you couldn't buy. "Fine," Gabriel breathed, "but you wear a wire, and you don't leave Preston's sight. If a hair on your head is touched, I will kill everyone in this city. The plan was dangerous. Simone was to drive one of the Mercer cars to a secluded meeting spot, a pier on the waterfront that Lucas Vane owned. Preston had leaked information that Simone was looking to sell out Gabriel for a better price. It was the kind of betrayal a man like Lucas would believe. The night was foggy, the mist rolling off the dark water. Simone stood at the end of the pier, the wind whipping her hair. She felt the cold metal of the wire taped to her chest. "He's approaching," Preston's voice crackled in her earpiece. "3 cars, stay calm." Headlights cut through the fog. 3 black SUVs screeched to a halt. Doors opened. Lucas Vane stepped out, flanked by 4 armed guards. And there, standing beside him, was Leo Crane, the truck driver, the waiter, the assassin. "Well, well," Lucas smirked, walking toward her. "The little waitress has claws after all. I heard you wanted to make a deal. Realize the ship is sinking?" "Gabriel is dying," Simone lied, her voice trembling perfectly. "The doctors say he won't last the week. I want out, but I want payment. I know what you did." Lucas laughed. "You know nothing, darling. I know you hired Leo," she pointed at the hitman. "I know you tried to kill him with the truck, and then the poison. I have the medical reports." "Smart girl," Lucas sneered. "But smart girls know when to keep their mouths shut. You think I'm going to pay you? I'm going to silence you. Then Gabriel will die of grief, and the Mercer Empire will be mine." He signaled to Leo, "Throw her in the water. Make it look like a suicide." Leo stepped forward, a knife glinting in his hand. "Now!" Simone screamed. Floodlights blinded them. From the shadows of the shipping containers, Preston's team emerged, weapons drawn. A helicopter roared overhead, its spotlight pinning Lucas and Leo to the wood of the pier. "Drop the weapons!" Preston boomed over a loudspeaker. Lucas's eyes went wide. "It's a trap!" Leo didn't freeze. He lunged. He wasn't going to jail. He grabbed Simone, wrapping an arm around her throat and pressing the knife to her ribs. "Back off!" Leo screamed, dragging Simone backward toward the edge of the pier. "I'll kill her! I swear it!" The police paused. Preston held up his hand. "Let her go, Leo," Preston warned. "There's nowhere to go." "I'm taking her with me," Leo spat. Simone couldn't breathe. The knife dug into her jacket. She saw Lucas Vane trying to sneak back to his car, only to be tackled by 2 security guards. Then she saw him. Gabriel. He was limping out of the shadows, leaning on his cane. He walked right past the armed guards, straight toward Leo. He looked like the angel of death. "Stop!" Leo yelled, his voice cracking. "I'll cut her!" Gabriel didn't stop. He threw his cane aside. He walked with a limp, but his stride was powerful. "You took my blood," Gabriel said, his voice low and terrifying. "Now you're touching my wife. You have made a very grave mistake." Leo hesitated, unnerved by the billionaire walking unarmed toward a knife. In that split second of hesitation, Simone acted. She stomped on Leo's instep with all her might and threw her head back, smashing it into his nose. Leo howled, his grip loosening. Simone dropped to the ground. Bang! A single shot rang out, not from the police, from Gabriel. He had pulled a small revolver from his coat. Leo Crane dropped the knife, clutching his shoulder, and fell to his knees. Gabriel reached Simone before she hit the wood. He scooped her up, ignoring the pain in his own body, pulling her into his chest. He buried his face in her hair. "I told you," Gabriel whispered fiercely, his heart pounding against hers. "I told you not to let them touch you." Simone clung to him, shaking. "I'm okay. I'm okay." As the police swarmed in to arrest Lucas Vane and Leo Crane, Gabriel didn't look at them. He didn't look at the cameras flashing in the distance. He only looked at Simone. "The contract is void," Gabriel said abruptly. Simone pulled back, confused. What? I'm tearing it up, Gabriel said. I don't want a fake fiancé anymore. Simone's heart dropped. Oh, I see. Now that the threat is gone? No, Gabriel interrupted, cupping her face with his hands. I don't want a fake fiancé. Because I want a real one. Simone stared at him, the chaos of the pier fading away. I fell in love with you when you gave me your blood, Gabriel confessed, his voice raw. I just didn't realize it until I almost lost you tonight. Simone Caldwell, will you marry me? For real? No money, no deals. Just us. Simone looked at the billionaire who had walked through fire for her. She smiled, tears streaming down her face. Ask me again when you're not high on painkillers, she laughed, sobbed. I'm serious, Gabriel said. Then yes, Simone whispered. Yes. He kissed her then, a kiss that tasted of sea salt and victory. 6 months had passed since the night on the pier. The fog of Seattle had lifted, replaced by a brilliant, crystalline summer. The courtroom drama had been the headline of every major newspaper in the country. Lucas Vane was sentenced to 20 years for conspiracy to commit murder and corporate espionage. Leo Crane took a plea deal that locked him away for 15, but the sweetest victory was the one that happened in the Mercer boardroom. With Lucas Vane's testimony exposing Victoria's complicity, her willful blindness to the threats against her nephew, the board of directors voted unanimously to remove her. She was stripped of her titles, her keys, and her access to the family trust. The last Simone saw of her, Victoria was being escorted out of the building by security, clutching her pearls, screaming that the company would crumble without her. It didn't. In fact, Mercer shipping stocks had never been higher. But today, nobody was thinking about stocks. The lawns of Mercer Heights were transformed. White roses, thousands of them, covered every inch of the trellis work. A string quartet played softly near the cliff edge. Simone Caldwell stood in front of a full-length mirror in the master suite. She wasn't wearing the red dress of a warrior today. She was wearing white, a gown of French lace and silk that flowed like a cloud. You look breathtaking, a voice said. Simone turned. It was Preston. The stoic security guard had softened over the months. He was now the closest thing she had to a father figure. I'm nervous, Preston, Simone admitted, smoothing the fabric. Not about marrying him, but about being this person. Mrs. Mercer. Can I really do it? Preston smiled, a rare, genuine expression. Simone, you took down a hitman with a headbutt. Running a charity foundation and hosting dinner parties will be a walk in the park. You didn't just save Gabriel's life. You saved his soul. He was a machine before you. Now he's a man. Simone took a deep breath. Okay, let's do this. The ceremony was intimate. Only close friends, loyal staff, and the board members who had stood by Gabriel. No press, no paparazzi. As Simone walked down the aisle, the ocean breeze catching her veil, she locked eyes with Gabriel. He stood at the altar, leaning lightly on a cane he rarely used anymore. He looked healthy, vibrant. The pallor of death was gone, replaced by a tan from the weekends they spent sailing. When she reached him, he didn't wait for the priest. He reached out and took her hands. His grip was warm and strong. We wrote our own vows, the priest announced with a smile. Gabriel cleared his throat. He looked at the guests, then focused entirely on Simone. Simone, he began, his voice thick with emotion. My whole life, I dealt in transactions. I thought everything had a price. I thought love was a liability. Then came a stormy night, and a woman who had nothing gave me everything. You gave me your blood. You gave me your breath. You gave me a future I didn't deserve. He paused, blinking back tears. I promised to spend every day of that future trying to be worthy of the gift you gave me. I promised to protect you, to honor you, and to never let you count quarters for rent again. You are my heart, Simone. Literally and figuratively. Simone wiped a tear from her cheek. Her hands were shaking, but she held on tight. Gabriel, she whispered. I walked into the rain that night because I couldn't stand to see someone in pain. I didn't know I was walking toward my destiny. You challenged me. You infuriated me. But you also saw me. You saw the fighter in the Waitress. I promised to be your partner in every battle, your shelter in every storm. I love you. I now pronounce you husband and wife, the priest declared. You may kiss the bride. The kiss was gentle, lingering, and sealed with the applause of the people who truly mattered. Later that evening, as the reception wound down and the fireworks painted the sky over the Pacific, Simone and Gabriel sat on a stone bench overlooking the ocean. Simone kicked off her expensive heels and sighed happily, wiggling her toes in the cool grass. Tired, Mrs. Mercer? Gabriel asked, handing her a glass of sparkling cider. Exhausted, Simone laughed. But happy. Gabriel reached into his pocket. I have one last wedding gift. It's not on the registry. He handed her a small velvet box. Simone opened it. Inside wasn't a diamond or a ruby. It was a key. An old brass key. What is this? She asked. I bought the building, Gabriel said softly. The one on East Olive Way, the diner, and the apartments above it. Simone gasped. The Midnight Diner. Mr. Henderson has been retired, Gabriel smirked. It's yours, Simone. You can turn it into whatever you want. A shelter, a soup kitchen, a community center. You said you wanted to help people. Now you have the place to do it. Simone looked at the key, then at the man she loved. She thought about the girl who had scrubbed those counters, dreaming of a way out. Now, she had the power to make sure no one else felt that trapped again. Thank you, she whispered, leaning her head on his shoulder. No, Gabriel said, kissing the top of her head as the red and gold fireworks reflected in his eyes. Thank you. For the blood. For the life. For everything. In the end, the Waitress didn't just marry the billionaire. She saved him. And in saving him, she saved herself. It wasn't the money that made them rich. It was the second chance at life they had given each other. Wow, what a journey. From a desperate waitress counting pennies to the savior of a billionaire empire, Simone proved that true wealth isn't about what you have in the bank. It's about what you're willing to give when it matters most. She gave her blood to a stranger and got a life she never imagined in return. It really makes you think about the concept of karma, that one act of kindness in the dark can change your entire destiny. What would you do in Simone's shoes? Would you have risked your job to save a stranger? And do you think Gabriel deserved that second chance? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one. If you enjoyed this dramatic roller coaster of romance, betrayal, and justice, please smash that like button. It really helps the channel grow. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss out on the next incredible story. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.